Of course, this is another concept that I just dove deep on, but what I started doing was I created just a manual Excel spreadsheet where I tracked every dollar that we spent for a couple years. You can use programs, like Mint, or there's one called Personal Capital, which I think is now called Empower. I'm sure there are a bunch of others, but there's a way to more automatically do this than a manual process. But the reason I did it manually was because I wanted to categorize exactly where every dollar we spent for a year went and have the insight of, does that seem reasonable? Does it not? Like, how much are we spending on food and alcohol? How much are we spending on entertainment? How much are we spending on clothing and like personal healthcare things? How much are we spending on travel? So it starts to give you a newfound respect on or perspective on, until you do the math, you just don't know. You might have an idea in your head of like, oh, I feel like I spend a lot or a little on this or that. The other thing that helped was I also did some just personal challenges where I did like a no buy year. And you can do this, you don't have to do this like in totality for all spending categories, but I did it for clothing. That was the one I started with, which is funny because I was working at a clothing company at the time and I could get like unlimited pairs of jeans if I wanted to, but I owned one pair of jeans. But I did a no buy year with clothing and literally spent $0 on clothing for a year. And then once it kind of gamifies it, right? It makes it more fun and interesting to say, could I go a year without spending money on clothing? And then it builds a new habit. While you're doing the challenge or experiment, it starts to build a new habit. And you start to think about things differently. Instead of saying, oh yeah, I need that or I want that, your default is no, right? And then you have to make a case to yourself as to why it should be a yes. So you completely flip the default script of, oh yeah, I need that, I want that, this, that, whatever, to no, my baseline is no, and it's got to be a really good case for why I say yes to buying something. So what happened naturally was I got to the end of the no buy year and it just kept going. So then it became 13 months and 14 months and 16 months where I didn't buy anything. I think I finally broke it because I had to buy a suit for a friend's wedding or something. But yeah, so you can kind of start small with things like that. And then the other thing I did was I dove deep on like the Bureau of Labor Statistics or something has like, they call it like the average spending of like household consumer units or something like that. And I think at the time, this was back in like 2017 or 18, the average household spent like 60 something thousand dollars a year. And now keep in mind, people like in the FIRE movement are spending $25,000 to $40,000 a year, even in some cases with kids and a larger family. So 25 to 40,000 is probably like a range for people in the FIRE movement. And then you've got people like Jacob Lund Fisker of Early Retirement Extreme, who for over a decade now has been spending around $7,000 a year total, all in on everything, including insurance and taxes and like home, like everything, $7,000 a year, which in some cases is just like, one spending category of another family's, annual expenses. But being able to compare our household expenses to like the average consumer spending unit or whatever opened my eyes to where are we overspending, where are we underspending. Like it kind of gave you a baseline for comparison and being able to judge some things that way. But in that post on the website, I kind of outline the big areas where we were over the average and where we cut the most. But for me personally, clothing was just a one that was just, that's saving a couple $1,000s a year right there.
Yeah. You need to send me the link to this post. This is really interesting. I want to put it in the show notes, and I also want to read it because that's fascinating. And I don't know about those people spending 25 to 40K a year with kids. They're definitely not living in New York, but that's impressive. That's really impressive, regardless of where you're at.
Yeah. And no matter what it is, right? I mean, any amount of reduction, like a 20 to 30% reduction can be a big chunk of money saved. Another one that we did, I don't know why this just randomly occurred to me. We changed our phone plan we were spending like $2,000 a year, close to $2,000 a year or something on our 2 lines of our phone plan. We cut that down. We now use like a prepaid phone plan, and it's like $300 a year per person. So like in a day, we just made a new decision that saved us $1,500 to $2,000 per year. So there's stuff like that. And like the prepaid phone plans run on the big networks and the service is still fine. We even live in a fairly remote location of New Mexico now, and it's not really a big deal. So there's things like that where you can just kind of hack these things and you can just try new things over time. And then it all adds up over the course of years, right?